Okay, welcome to part 2 of the statistical functions. Project 8, Office 2013 Excel Chapter 8. So, for the first part, we covered steps 1 through 8. In the second part, we'll cover steps 9 through 18. So it'll take you all the way to where you can submit it to My IT Lab once you log in for a grade. Okay, so where we left off, we had just calculated the count and the average salary for managers with a satisfaction rating of 4 or more. So on step 9, what we have to do is enter a function in cell F4. So this is salary rank F4 that calculates the rank of the salary in cell D4 against the range of salaries in the dataset. So when we input this function, it will calculate what this value is, what rank it is in terms of all these values. So it'll be rank like number 20 something. To do this, what we have to do is use a certain function that I had to research. It's called a rank.eq function. Previously, in previous versions of Excel, it was just the rank function, but they've made some updates to the function. So if you look for rank and just click go, as you can see, there's a rank.eq, rank.avge, avg, and actually, from just experimenting, if you use rank, you'll get partial credit. If you use rank.eq or rank.avg, you'll get full credit. So let's click on this. Rank EQ and rank AVG are very similar. It's just that they're slightly different in terms of if there's a tie in values. So if you look over here, well, let's just select rank.eq and click OK. So we're going to insert that function. If you look over here, if any of these values were to be exactly the same, then in the event of a tie, then it would do something slightly different for rank.eq versus rank.avg. However, I don't think that's the case, so either one will get you the full credit. So what we want to do is first look at this number field, and we want the number for which you want to find the rank. So the number for which we want to find the rank is right over here in D4. And if you look ahead to step number 10, we're going to use the fill handle to copy the function down. So right now we want to be sure to include the appropriate cell references, absolute or mixed, before copying the functions. So as you can see, we want to lock the column because as we drag this down, we want this to also go down. So we just press function F4, and we don't want an absolute reference, we want relative referencing to lock the column. And then we click on reference, and this says reference is an array of or a reference to a list of numbers. Non-numerical values are ignored. So the array in this case would be D4 to D53. So we're going to compare this individual value, 45,855, to the whole range of values. We'll drag this down. And then we want to make it an absolute reference because we want to lock that range for when we drag this down. So function F4, and again function F4, and then we click on order. So now what order does is it puts it, if you look up here, is a number. It ranks it either in descending or ascending order. In this case, from just trial and error, we want descending order. So we either leave it blank or enter a 0. and then hit OK. As you can see, the salary rank that it returned was 27. So that basically means that this value, 45,855, is the 27th value out of this whole range. So as you can see, since we add the referencing, we can just drag it down. To cover this whole table, and then we'll fill. And then as you can see, the number 1 rank, the highest paid person in terms of salary, would be this director with $97,159, and the lowest would be, let's see, probably out of 53. Or 50, it would be, I believe it's this one, 30,176. So that's the lowest paid. So that was basically step number 9 and step number 10. Now we move on to step 11. We want to enter a function in cell I-20. Oh, let's save. Control S. I-20. To calculate the minimum quartile value in the list of salaries. So we want the minimum quartile value in the list of salaries. So here's a list of salaries. What that means is the quartile divides it up into like bins or like sections. So anything below a certain value, like the lowest value, would go in the 0 quartile. Anything in like the second bin from 0 to 1, like a portion of the data would go in this bin, like a range, or it's going to actually be a count, the number of occurrences or the frequency in the first quartile. In the second quartile would be like the second bin, and then third and fourth. It's a little hard to explain, but as I go through with the equation or the function, I'll be able to explain it better. So what I did first was I used the quartile function. So I went to insert function, and then because of the instructions it said basically calculate the minimum quartile value. So I just typed in quartile, and I noticed that there are a few examples. Now I did some research online, and when I tried this and I submitted it, I actually didn't get credit for it because this is the older function. As you can see here, it says this function is available for compatibility with Excel 2007 and earlier. So it was used for an earlier version of Excel. Since then, they've done some updates, and so now what is a suggested function is either the quartile.inc or quartile.exe. In this case, we want quartile.inc, and it returns the quartile of a data set based on percentile values from 0 to 4 inclusive. So what that means, I think, is that if the quartile is 0, like a minimum quartile of 0, then it will include it. But if it's below, it won't include it. Because we want to include the 0 quartile, that's why we need this. We need the inc. But if you click on the quartile.exe, it returns the quartile of a dataset based on percentile values from 0 to 1 exclusive. So it excludes, I believe it will exclude the 0 quartile, and it'll just go from 1, 2, 3, and 4. So basically that's saying like 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%, but it excludes the minimum value. But we actually need that minimum quartile value according to step 11. So we're going to try the quartile.inc function, and then just click go. OK. What we have to do is enter an array in, and it's the array or cell range of numeric values for which you want the quartile value. In this case, we want the quartile value for salaries. So it's basically we highlight this and we drag it down. It should go to here. D4 to D53. And again, if you look at step 12, looking ahead, we're going to have to use the fill handler to complete the remaining quartile values. So to complete the values quartile 1, 2, 3, and 4. So instead of just leaving it without the references, we want to include the references. And that will be an absolute reference because we're locking the salary column and the rows. So function F4, click on this, function F4. And the second field is the quartile field, and this is a number. The minimum value is 0, which we want to include in our table of quartile and salary values. There's a first quartile, a median value, a third quartile, and a maximum value. So these are the different bins, basically, that we want to calculate the frequencies of salaries, I guess. So instead of just entering 0 in, because we're going to be dragging this down and copying the formula into these other cells, we want to reference this over here. So we click on that as H20, and again we want to include the referencing, but it's not absolute reference because we don't want to lock the cell. We want to lock only the column, so we can drag it down. So it's function F4, and that's like that. So it's an H20 right here, and then we click OK. Then we double check that. It comes out with a salary of 30,176. Now if you look at the 0 quartile, if you look on the right and you look at all the values in salary, the 0 quartile would be the very minimum bin. And that minimum value is, I believe it's right here, $30,176. So that's the lowest. And because we use the quartile inc function, it includes that for the minimum. If we use the other function, the quartile exclusive, then it wouldn't include that value. That's my understanding. So all we have to do now, because we have the absolute references and the relative reference, we just click that and we drag it down. And it'll copy the formula. And the formatting's good. It's the accounting number formatting. As you can see, let's just click on a value. As you click down, that salary data is locked, and the quartiles, as you can see, H22, 23, 24, it changes. So it's referencing these different quartiles. And what that says is basically those are the cutoffs. Like, so the minimum is 30,176. The first quartile is 35 to 33, and then the second quartile right around the middle is 45, 9, 55, and so on and so forth. And that's the actual highest value, 97,159, which is this one, the number 1 ranked. Okay, so I'm going to save it, Control S, and that means we just completed step 12. Now we want to enter a function in step 13 for cell H27 to calculate the correlation of column D and E. So the correlation of column D, salary, and E, job satisfaction. To do this, I also did some research, and what we use is the correlation function. So I just typed in correlation and hit go, and it comes up with a C-O-R-R-E-L, coral. Okay, and then it asks for two different fields, array 1 and array 2. Array 1 is a cell range of values. The values should be numbers, names, arrays, or references that contain numbers. So the range of values that we want to look at first is D4 to D53. And because we're not actually having to copy this or using the fill handle, we don't have to add the referencing or the absolute relative referencing. We click in the second array number 2, and array 2 is a second cell range of values. And that would be this one right here. So we are doing columns D and E. So click on E, drag it down. Okay. And then we click OK. And returns a correlation value. That's step 13. In step 14, we want to format our results. So click on the Home tab. As number format, right now it's in general format. We go to the number group, go to the Home tab, number group, and we click on number format. As you can see, it dropped it down to 2 decimal places, and that's what we want, 0.23. For step 15, we have to click the data tab. So up here on the top, we click data tab and select data analysis. So if you look to the right under the analysis group, there's a data analysis. We click that. And then we select descriptive statistics. Right here. Click OK. And it says complete the input criteria using the salary data in column D. So column D's salary data, we just have it in the input range right here. We just highlight that and drag it down. Use the quartiles in range I-20 to I-24 as a bin range. Okay, actually no. Scratch that. I moved on too fast. We're still on step 15. So input criteria using the salary data in column D, which is what I did. Set the output functions to display on a new worksheet. So output options, display, and a new worksheet. Hint, and then it says hint, be sure to output summary statistics. So we just click that. So again, we open data analysis, we chose descriptive statistics. We chose the input range as the salaries from D4 to D53, and then it adds the absolute reference that's over here. We leave these defaults, and then instead of the output options, we don't put an output range, we leave a new worksheet, and we check summary statistics. Then we click OK. It's going to create a second table, or a second worksheet. It's called Sheet 1. We want to name the newly created worksheet Descriptive Statistics, so we can click on that, right-click it, and rename. Call it Descriptive Statistics. Hit enter. And as you can see, the values, it's kind of cut off, so you can make the table bigger. One of the tricks I learned from one of my other business classes is if you click in this top box up here in the corner, so the whole table is highlighted, and then you go between one of the cells and you click it, it automatically adjusts all the rows. I mean, you can do it individually. You can kind of just click in between here. It just makes it so you can read everything, basically. So here are our descriptive statistics based on the employee satisfaction worksheet. Next, that was step 16. We've done 15. We need to move on to step 17, which is almost the last step. We need to go back to the employee satisfaction table, and we need to click on the Data tab and select Data Analysis. Select Histogram and click OK. So we went to the Data tab, Analysis Group, Data Analysis, and we select Histogram and click OK. Use the salaries in column D as the input range. So again, this is where I made the mistake. Now we have to, again, for the histogram, to create the histogram, use the salaries, column D, just drag it down. So the input range is D4 to D53. Use the quartiles in range I20 to I24 as a bin range. So as you can see here, bin range, we want to click on that, and we want to use those quartiles that we got in I20 to I24. So I20 to I24, right here, I20 to I24. And as you can see, the absolute referencing is added by default by the program. I didn't add that. Output the data in cell H29. So instead of using a new worksheet, it wants you to output options, so move it from new worksheet to here, output range, and you want to click on here, and you want it to be H29. So H29. Again, the absolute reference is in there. And then the last step is be sure to include a chart with the output. So over here we can ignore those. We got chart output. Click OK. As you can see, it created a histogram, and you can see here's the frequency of the salaries occurring based on the different bins. So the first bin is this is 0, it happening 0 times, and this is happening 15 times. This is the first bin, it's like the 0 quartile, the first, second, third, and fourth. And there's a more quartile, which was added by default. That's nothing. There's nothing more than the maximum value of 97,159. Let me double check my figures. Yep, it looks correct, and the formatting is correct. That finishes step 17. So if we look at the chart, before we move on, let's take a look at this, and these two are the same thing. This is just a graphical representation of the data. So as you can see, these are our bins based on the quartiles. So bin 1, 30,176, bin 2, 35,233, and that's quartile 1, so on and so forth. Within each of these bins, this is the frequency of the salaries that fall within each bin. So in bin 1, there's only 1. Bin 2, it's probably between 30,176 and 35,233. There are 12. Between 45,955 and 35,233, there are 12, and so on and so forth. And that's represented here. Okay, for step 18, that's the last step. What we need to do is move the employee satisfaction worksheet to display first in the workbook. So right now, employee satisfaction is not first. We click on it, and we drag it over. You see the little arrow there? We let it go, and now employee satisfaction displays first in the workbook. Ensure that the worksheets are correctly named and placed in the following order in the workbook: employee satisfaction and descriptive statistics. Save the workbook, Control S, close the workbook, and then exit Excel. Submit the workbook as directed. So now that you've saved it, all you have to do is log into your My IT Lab account with your username and password. Go to where you normally upload the projects. This is a project 8. And upload your file. And you should do very well. If you have any questions, please bring it up in Business 311 Lab and we'll be sure to help you with that or to resolve them. Thank you very much, and tune in next time for another great experience. That will probably be Project 9 in MS Office 2013 Access. Thank you. Bye.